So the shape of a quadratic function has a special word for it. Does anybody know what the shape of a quadratic is? Starts with the letter P. Parabola. Yes. So if you see a parabola on a graph, actually I don't know if x to the fourth would be considered a parabola. It doesn't look quite like one. But anyways, all quadratics have a parabola shape. Here's an example of a quadratic function. Of course, it can be pointed down, doesn't have to be pointed up, but certainly it looks like a U. And so one way to define parabola is you could just say U-shaped. But the first thing I want you to write down is the shape of a quadratic function is a parabola. The imaginary line that divides the parabola into basically two equal pieces is called the axis of symmetry. We're going to take a look and see what that looks like. But anyways, all parabolas are symmetrical around some line, not necessarily the y-axis. And that line of symmetry is called the axis of symmetry. The highest or lowest point is called the vertex. I know in geometry vertex means like where two lines meet, but it can also mean where basically the parabola comes down to the bottom, basically the bottom or the top of the U, depending on which way it's pointed. So if you notice, it's the only point where the axis of symmetry would cross the parabola. And again, we're going to take a look at that so you'll be able to see what that looks like. So vertex is where the bottom or the top of the U is. But anyways, either the parabola is going to be pointing up, it's going to be pointing down. A parabola that's pointing down is going to look like this. Okay? Basically the way the arrows are going, right? And the parabola that's pointing up would be just like a normal U. So either up or down. Well, the up makes sense because it looks like the letter U, right? Example 1. All right, so here's what we're talking about, the axis of symmetry. It's a line that cuts the parabola in half. So you can already see what that looks like. It does have an equation, which we'll talk about. And then the parabola is a point. The vertex is a point. So the axis of symmetry is a line. The vertex is a point. Now we're going to be reviewing some concepts because that's why we learned them. For example, domain and range, increasing and decreasing, that kind of thing. So first of all, can you tell me what the domain of this function is? Yep. So the domain is all the possible x values. If you were to take a line and scan across the graph, you would see that line would cross everywhere. Even where that graph goes up, you can't see it, but it goes to the left and right forever. So that line would theoretically cross everywhere. So the domain would be all real numbers. Range, going to be 2 to infinity. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let me move some of this stuff so we can see everything on the page. All right, so why 2 to infinity? Because you have a y value right here, which is 2, and it includes it. And then the graph, the y values go up forever. That's why the range is 2 to infinity. Increasing is where the graph goes up. So that would be from 3, from 3 to infinity. Graph's going to increase, go up, right? It's going to decrease from negative infinity to negative 3. So it's going to go down from negative infinity to negative 3. So when you get the worksheet, you're going to have to answer these questions, which are review, but equally important. Again, it's going to be pointing up, this one. Why? Because it's U-shaped and the arrows are going up, so we can say it's pointing up. And the axis of symmetry is always going to be x equals something. Okay? In this case, it's x equals 3. Remember, vertical lines have an equation x equals something. That makes sense because this line crosses at x equals 3. So x of symmetry is always a x equals equation. And the vertex is simple. It's just whatever that point is where the u comes together. The bottom or the top of the u. In this case, it's going to be 3, 2. Yes.
For the axis of symmetry, it'd be 3. So you'd use the x-axis?
Yeah, the answer is x equals 3. 2 more questions are going to be answering our x and y intercepts. And those are easy, okay? Again, that should be a review as well. But x and y intercepts are just where they cross the x and y axis. So let's take a look at this graph. It doesn't cross the x-axis, right? And so it doesn't have any x-intercepts. Now, y-intercept, I put unknown because we know that this graph is going to keep going up. It will cross somewhere. It looks like it crosses maybe at 11. If you don't know, you don't know. You just put unknown. You know it will cross, so you can't put no y-intercept or no f of x-intercept, but you just don't know where. So I put unknown. So any questions about the first example? Oops, not there. You basically have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions, simple questions about the parabola. All right, number 2. What direction is this parabola pointing? Down. So that's going to be different. Can anybody tell me where the vertex is? -4, 2. Good. Okay. How about the axis of symmetry? X or Y? I can guarantee you when I give you a multiple choice question, one of them is going to be y equals -4 and not be incorrect. So you have to know it's x. But yes, you're right. X of symmetry would be x equals -4. So you said it's pointing down. That's good. All right. How about the x-intercepts? Where does it cross the x-axis? No, it only crosses twice. I think you were answering domain. Domain for all of these guys is always going to be all real numbers. A parabola or a quadratic, domain is always all real numbers. But yeah, the x-intercepts are -6, comma 0 would be the technical point because the y value is 0. So an x-intercept actually has a point, and this one would be -2, comma 0. How about the y-intercept? 0, -6, right? So the x value is 0, y value is -6. And then, no, I'm missing something. Oh, wait, domain we mentioned is all real numbers. How about range? Remember, for range, you start at the bottom, you go to the top. Okay, so yes, it does touch down there. It goes up to what point? Yep, -infinity to 2 is going to be the range. That point on the vertex, that y value will always be included in your range because that's where the graph stops. So putting all that together, here are going to be the answers for this one. Domain, like I said, it always will be all real numbers for parabolas, quadratics. Range, -infinity, -2. That's one thing we failed to mention. Increasing. So it's going to be increasing on the left. It's going to be increasing from -infinity to -4. This. So it increases up to -4, and then it decreases from -4 to infinity. So I can trace that a little bit better. Okay, so next we have direction pointing down this time. Axis of symmetry mentioned was x equals -4. Vertex we said was -4, 2. X-intercepts, -6, 0, and 2, 0. And y-intercepts, or f of x-intercept, same thing, 0, -6. And that's it. Basically, this whole lesson is review except for the vertex and the axis of symmetry. And I will leave that on there for you guys to copy.